All right. Want me to?
All right.
Jan is not going to rejoin.
Please.
So just whatever. So I'll just wrap up. So yeah, as I had said, we have the capital budget and that's got its own separate bank account and everything. But the operating budget Jan was talking about, the implications for the operating budget on this project have been, obviously we've been renting the lot next door at Arnott. They started out at 6,000 a month. They're down to 600 a month. Luckily, we could not have afforded 6,000 a month, but we also have, with that contract, we've had to hire parking attendants. I'm not sure they've really been all that useful, but they're there. And that's been expensive. That's going to cost us over the year $40,000. So that's way beyond what we can afford. So, and it's obviously a rent deferral till fall, till December, means we can keep paying them. We'll pay them to October. I don't even know that we'll need them that long, but as long as we're using the parking lot next door, we're sort of obligated to have the guys there. So the parking lot costs and the interest costs are direct costs that the market has to bear. And the interest is running now because the more we borrow, we're trying to reduce what we borrow, which I think we won't have to borrow anymore. So I'm really excited about that. But we are running, that's running about 16,000 a month. So by the end of the year, we'll have another $81,000 that we are obligated. So those are huge expenses to our operating budget, and a rent deferral of, I think what it ends up being, maybe 30,000 is a little bit of help. But I had asked for rent forgiveness, but that I guess is not possible in your purview, not in your purview to give, but we will manage. The good thing about the deferral is that it does allow us to stay current on all our bills. And then, you know, at the end of the year, we can hopefully have raised some money through fundraising, which is the only other source for covering that. And we do have a campaign out right now to raise 350,000. That's the Friends' responsibility. So these two things tie together closely, and we'll just keep plugging away. And somehow, you know, so far we've been fairly fortunate that by the skin of our pants, we've been managing to have money come in just at the right time. So, but I'd be happy to entertain any large amounts of money coming our way. So that's it.
Cheyenne.
Hi, I'm new to this, understanding the bones of this project. So I just had a couple of questions. One is, I'm sure the terms of the grant from the state were such that you would have to make the expenditures and then wait to get reimbursed, right? That was known.
Yeah.
So it was known that you were going to have to borrow the money and pay the interest.
That was
part of the plan.
That's why we have a loan from Farm Credit East, and we obtained that loan to make those payments. But it didn't cover these additional expenses.
What are the, you mean for the additional parking lot?
The parking, yeah, the additional parking, it didn't cover that. That's a minor expense, but the parking attendants and then the interest is not covered by the grant. So,
right, I'm just wondering about the what had been in the original financial plan.
Well, all of the construction basically is in the grant budget.
Right, but in the plan to do the parking lot, it must have been known that you were going to have to pay interest on the loan that was necessary in order to sort of backfill while waiting for the reimbursement.
Right. And we had calculated that, and that is part of the fundraising strategy that will cover the interest payments out of that. But in the meantime, the market has had to lend us money in order to make those interest payments. And they're basically, we're at the tail end of what they have in their bank accounts to even lend, to make, you know, to move things from a reserve account into an operating account to make payments. So they're kind of at the tail end. But no, we did know, and we, this is our first ever big project like this. The last time we made a major infrastructure investment was in 1988 when we built the pavilion between 88 and 91. And that was all done with vendor labor. I mean, you can't do those things today. And so we knew the scope of this project. But are we a little bit naive? Yeah. But we knew the interest was there and that was going to be a charge. So I think considering our, let's say, inexperience at big grants like this, I must say, since I've been handling a lot of it, I feel pretty proud about it that we've done as well as we could. So, I think we'll be okay in the end. I did raise 600,000 to meet the state match in 2024. I still need the 350. Will pay off the interest. It'll pay off the loans that the market has given us, which is 200,000 at this point. And it'll pay off our capital campaign expense of 50,000. And we owe the Park Foundation 100,000. So we still owe quite a bit of money, but I hope we can do a good job on fundraising. But, again, as a new kid on the block for fundraising, and because it's an infrastructure project, not a programmatic project, it's hard to raise money.
I mean, the state doesn't provide a lot of upfront information that the reimbursement time period will be 6 months or so, from the time you submit it. So a lot of times people expect a little quicker turnaround than actually occurs.
Yeah. But they've been on target with 6 months. So I guess that's known now. We've had two grants or 2 payments reimbursed and both have taken 6 months.
Cool.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right. You had 2 questions.
Yeah, the second one was just informational about, so when I was at the farmer's market recently, the parking lot, is it done? It seems done.
It's 90% done. Yeah, we'll still be planting a lot of trees and shrubs. And there's little tweaks that are happening this next week. Some additional signage and striping for safety reasons. What's the other thing? Some additional cement pavement to level out one area. But basically most of the parking lot is done.
I thought I saw that there was still, if I understand where this supplemental parking space that you're sort of borrowing, that was still quite full.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we won't have room for everyone. No, we know that. It's not a bigger parking lot. It's a redone parking lot.
Yeah,
but
right. More accessible and fantastic
right.
in those ways. But
But
does that,
still-
is using that space what is sort of necessitating the need for the attendance?
Yes.
So that's going to be a regular expense.
No,
that somebody
well,
will have
no, we
to
won't be
build
able to
in.
use that space after this year. They're gonna, they're hoping to build
Oh.
something over there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and then our strategy, which we're already working on, is, which I think has been suggested by some committee, maybe you guys, but, looking at how can we get people to market that can't park in the lot, but we're currently working on a map that shows all the, neighborhood parking that's a bit public. And so our locals kind of know those lots, but it's the visitors that don't know those exterior lots on 3rd Street or Guthrie and whatever. So we're trying to create a really good map. And I have funding from the Farm to Fork CVB program to develop a good map that shows the alternative parking locations. We'll still have to promote that to our customers. And especially how to get to the visitors. That's going to be the key thing, is making that information, not just to our customers, but known to our visitors.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Monica, is it your sense that the state will reimburse you for the grants, or reimburse the farmers market for the grants by December 1st, so that the deferred rent can be paid back to this agency and the rent payments resume?
I think the I wouldn't, I sort of feel like the money is there. The money is budgeted by the farmer's market. And so, you know, it's really more of a cash flow, cash management. So I have confidence that the market will be able to pay you. And again, you know, our revenue comes throughout the year. We have weekly fees that the vendors pay. We have rent income from, you know, the weddings and other uses of the market. So we do have, we don't have income just once a year. We have income all year long. And I think, you know, there'll be enough money there to pay the rent that's due the 3 months. Yeah. So I have, you know, mainly because the market for 50 years has always been totally, they've never been in debt. So they've always paid their bills. So I do have a high level of confidence in their ability to manage their funds.
Sean.
And our costs related to that neighbors, you know, renting the neighbors and the parking attendants, that will go away at that point. So we won't have those costs. So we will have your costs instead.
This was just sort of a general question about the project, since we're talking about the parking lot and the overflow parking, which is the farmer's market doing any work to promote like vehicle access to the farmer's market and publicity around walking and biking and
I mean,
bus
there is a
routes?
lot of that happening, which is, you know, great. Again, it tends to be the locals. So that's why we're working on this map that shows where you can walk in and where you can bike in. We do have an additional bike lane that was created as part of the plan. And lots of bike racks all over the place. So it's, you know, it is our goal to try to encourage people to walk in. And, you know, I mean, I have visited markets all over the world, and quite honestly, I have never seen a farmer's market that isn't crowded when it's in session. It's just the nature of farmers markets, you know, they're going to be crowded. They're going to be, you know, it's the way it is. But yeah, we're wanting people to walk. We're wanting people to bike. And we've certainly made accommodation, but whether they use it is a question. And again, I don't think, I mean, over 50% of our customers are visitors every single weekend. So they're, you know, if you walk through the parking lot, you see plates from everywhere. So we're happy for that. I don't think we could survive as a market without those visitors, because we don't get enough local traffic to make the market viable. So, but we don't, so we depend on visitors.
Donna.
Do you know why the state is delayed in reimbursing you?
They're not delaying. It's just their normal process. It's not a delay. It's, and we've asked that a gazillion times. I said, you know, can't you move it along a little faster? And, you know, and I've sent them the same emails I send Bob and Nell's, like, well, we need money. And it doesn't move the needle. It's just their process. It goes from Department of State to the finance office, and then it has, you know, many people looking at it in the finance office, and then finally the check is issued. And then it comes to the city. But I must say, I love it that the city, compared to our prior grant, the city is now right on it. As soon as you guys get the check from the state, it is turned over to us, which I think due to Emma helping with that process. Before, we had to wait sometimes months for getting a payment from the city. So we're really pleased that you've helped us with that process. Thank you.
What's the projected net impact on the agency for the defer?
We collect these rents and pay them over to the city in February. So the difference is bank interest for 4 months.
Okay. And are those remitted to the city every February, or is it semi?
Yeah, once a year. We collect them
Once a
throughout the year and remit them to the city
Okay.
in February.
Okay. What are the interest rates?
Modest, because our accounts have to be
Right.
savings accounts and FDIC insured accounts.
Right, okay. Any further questions? We ready to vote? All right. All those in favor of the resolution as moved to provide a rent deferment for the farmer's market until December 1st of this year? That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. It will help ease the pain a little.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item is, excuse me. There we go. The CDBG timeliness workout plan. I will summarize this resolution. I don't really need to summarize this. This is just, the resolve is that we're going to approve this workout plan and direct staff to submit the plan to HUD, which we've obviously worked on. So can I have a second on that for discussion? Seconded by Siobhan. Any comments from Nels or from the agency members?
Right, we've tracked the CDBG spend down ratio in our monthly grant summaries. We didn't quite hit it this year, $70,000 away from meeting that ratio of 1.5 at the end of May. The prior HUD policy recognized the pandemic impact and the post-pandemic impact and provided a flexible 4-year kind of timeframe for bringing it back into compliance. Because a lot of communities were having trouble spending down. For example, doing a homeowner rehab during the pandemic was a very difficult project to accomplish in that time period. And at some point, they apparently superseded that policy and went back to their old policy, which is what the letter in your packet refers to, is you have, upon missing the spend down ratio, you have 12 months to bring it back in order, or they have the right to reduce our future grant by the amount that we are underspent. So it's a serious, issue to keep our eye on really closely. And so the workout plan really does try to have us closely look in mid-year whether we're on track to make that spend down ratio or not. And if we wait too late in the process, it's hard to figure out how do you respond quick enough, because you have to identify a CDBG eligible project that's going to spend down by May as a way to bring it into compliance. So this is really an idea here to continue our tracking, do a little more explicit tracking in our grant summary, which says we should be spending about $74,000 a month in CDBG to be on track on average. Of course, CDBG expenditures are lumpy. If you do the Cecil Malone sidewalk project, that's going to be $160,000 in one fell swoop probably. But on average, we should be spending down $74,000, $75,000 per month. And if we're not on track with that, we either have to take a look at a project to say that project is going to spend down soon, that CDBG project, or we need to develop a backup project and reprogram some funds. Reprogramming more than $25,000 usually requires going to Common Council, so there's a process and a timeline involved with that. So we don't want to wait too long to figure out where we want to go. My recommendation is we look at developing backup projects sooner than later, and by November that we have a really serious look at whether the agency wants to reprogram some funds or not, or postpone some projects that are not moving fast, that may not have started, to the next year, if there's a CDBG program, next year. That's another way to go. But really, I think we want to really have an increased focus to meet this requirement, because we don't want to lose any resources to the city or the community. And we have been going out and talking with some of our partners who do a lot of projects, as well as the city, to look at their capital program to say what projects might there be available that would be CDBG eligible and able to spend down funds. And we've identified a couple of candidate projects. So the thought is maybe to bring the ones that fall under economic development or neighborhood investment to those committees to see if there's an interest in pursuing those, or going with a different approach to identifying backup projects. I think that going through a full-blown competitive open search could be a little overkill for the project, because there's no, if our projects are on schedule, there's no need for reprogramming. And secondly, the focus really needs to be on feasibility and spend down and eligibility, because we can't spend more funds on public services because we're already at the cap on that. So it's got to really fall into one of those other categories: housing, economic development, or public facilities. So that's my summary of the workout plan. It says, well, we're taking it seriously and we're going to keep on top of our spend down.
Carl.
If we do have to go to backup projects, is there a public component to it?
Yeah, any substantial amendment has to have a public hearing and go to common council for approval as well as the IRA approval. So there's those components, and we can make it as public as we want at the agency level. But I mean, that's the minimum, is to have a formal public hearing at council on the proposed substantial amendment to the action plan.
Okay, so we don't have to do like the 30-day comment period?
The fifth, how much?
15.
Yeah, I think it's a 15-day.
Donna.
So regarding the Cecil Malone sidewalk project, is the delay because they have to do the work and then get reimbursed? I mean, my thought is, might be crazy, was can't we just give them some money up front and be done with it?
Yeah, had we known where we were going to be, we would have asked the city to structure their contract for the sidewalk project citywide a little bit differently. So the city trying to get the most contractors to bid on the project and to get the best price. They do the entire citywide sidewalks all at one time. They added the Cecil Malone project into that scope. And then they give the contractor 9 months to finish the project. That way they can fit it into their schedule wherever they can, and you get a better price. So what we didn't anticipate is they decided to defer the Cecil Malone project to the end of the schedule, whereas they were doing a lot of curb sidewalk projects along Washington Park and on Acuga Street and DeWitt Park early in April. So their original schedule was, they thought this project was going to be complete in April, and we would have spent down by May. It didn't work out that way. I have high confidence that they are going to finish Cecil Malone sidewalk. And it's on their schedule to finish this summer. So that one will get spent, and then the city will pay out, prove to us that they've paid out the money, and then we'll reimburse the city. So there's a little bit of a process there as well. There is an opportunity with that project to amend, do a change order. So one of the projects that engineering has identified is they could complete all of the Cherry Street missing components if that would connect to the new sidewalk if we wanted to pursue that project. They would have to notify that contractor probably by late September to include it in their scope. It'd be a change order. They'd have to agree to do it, but it would be a fixed price that's already been negotiated. So that is an opportunity for one project to finish, do an eligible project to fill in the gaps that are missing on Cherry Street. That's about a $75,000 project, which is because there's not a lot of curb work associated with that one. It's a lot cheaper on a linear foot basis than the original Cecil Malone project. So that's one that I think we should be bringing. We'll bring that to the NI committee for consideration.
Cheyenne.
So the alternative plan is really out of, a superabundance of caution, right? Because this is, unless for some reason they decide can't finish, they are contracted to be done by the fall,
Yes.
which would put us in fine stead.
It would make that project be online, but there's always, other CDBG projects that
Right.
maybe like,
sometimes.
right.
So, yes, yeah. But we would be, according to this, like there are, we do want the rehab program to continue along. So I guess that's something that we should be worried about on a medium term.
Right. I mean, the three big projects that we had concerns with are listed there. It's the Cecil Malone project, which is not really too far behind its original schedule. It's, 6 months behind in terms of spend down. The INHS homeowner rehab had 2 years of funding, and they have over $200,000 remaining in that. And they've had some challenges to move that money. And then the Economic Development Loan Fund has accumulated slowly but surely funds that seems a little bit more than what we need. There used to be a rule where if it was in a revolving loan fund, it didn't count against you. But then 7 or 8 years ago, HUD changed that rule. And now anything in the revolving loan fund is treated as if it's just not being spent. And so it works against our ratio. So if we want to keep our capacity available to meet economic development loans, we have to have some funds sitting in that account, but they're treated by HUD as bad money until you disperse them on loan funds. So we could look, I'm suggesting probably taking a close look at the ED loan fund and consider reprogramming some of those funds to activities to make sure we don't end up in a tight situation next June.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I don't totally understand what you were just saying about the revolving loan fund vis-a-vis other types of loan funds and why they want it to be this way or that way. Can you just explain
Sure,
that
yeah.
again?
So the rule is that we can't have more than 1.5 times our most recent grant award on our line of credit. So it's money that's either in our revolving loan fund or is on the line of credit. They're considering that unspent CDBG funds. And our most recent award is 680,000 round numbers. So they multiply that times 1.5 and you end up with a number somewhere 9 something. That is the maximum you can have combined between the amount that you have available to draw down to pay grantees. And then you add in whatever you have on your program income, which is our our revolving loan fund. The ED loan fund is generated from loan repayments. And we keep that in-house. So there's 2 areas where our funding is located. One is at HUD, the line of credit we can draw on, and the other is our revolving loan fund. They add those 2 together, and if they're too high, we don't meet the spend down requirement. And so we have a little bit more in our revolving loan fund than we've been spending out on loans recently, and we could reduce that as a way to reinvest that in other activities. Now, you may recall in their 2025 action plan, we basically did not take any program income and roll it back into the ED loan fund. We pushed it out to other activities. But we still have accumulated over the years something like 275,000 in that pot. And that's a little bit more than we've been spending out. So it's funds that we could look at reprogramming to other activities if we want to make sure we meet the 1.5 spend down requirement.
But those activities don't have to go through the same procedure as our standard annual.
It wouldn't have to, no, it would be through a program amendment process. So we would propose a change to the action plan. If it goes above 25,000 or hits another threshold, it would have to go through Common Council in a public hearing process, in a public hearing.
Cool.
A question about the homeowner rehab program. There's an income threshold for people to qualify for that service. Is that set by INHS or by HUD?
It's set by HUD at 80, maximum of 80% of the area median income. And I believe INHS follows that income threshold. They don't reduce it further down the scale. They could, I mean, we could say we only want to do 60% AMI, but.
I was thinking actually about a higher amount, and that way have a wider pool
Well,
of
you
people
can't
to
go above
qualify.
80% and be eligible for the CDBG activity, yeah.
Okay.
I think the only thing I'll throw in with my 2 cents, since I won't be at the NI committee, is just the rest of the Cherry Street seems like maybe not the highest and best use, but like a thing we could definitely spend the money on and is needed. So, Cheyenne.
I was just going to say, if one of our committee members, Mary, was here, she would say it's definitely probably even more important than the use that we are spending this on in terms of the safety around Cherry Street for people who use it. We had long conversation about this stretch twice over 2 years, and like just in terms of the relative sort of need in that area, I think people who use that area find it very sketchy to walk along Cherry Street. Yeah. So anything we could do in that regard, I think would be welcomed by the neighbors.
All right, no further discussion. We'll bring that resolution to a vote. All those in favor of the resolution as moved, and that carries unanimously. I'll turn it over to staff for the review of the grant, loan, and lease reports.
Working backwards, leases are all current as we speak. There are a couple of them that were running late, but happy to see the Southside Community Center got back in compliance. And we just talked about the farmers market who actually had made a check, but we were holding it until the decision on this meeting. So we will put that into the deferral category. The loan repayments are happily all current on their ED loans, so that's positive as well. Yes.
So it says here that Southside still owes. So you said they paid.
They have now paid. Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
we've received it. That's the May statement. They've made the payment in June. Sorry. And then, of course, now with our increased focus on spending on CDBG. You can see this is the May statement. We just received the June statements. Our accountant was on vacation. And this is, showing the $71,000 that was at the very bottom of that scale, which is the amount we would have needed to have spent to meet our 1.5 spend down. Keep in mind that it's only for community development block grant funds, not for the home funds, and the home funds are actually spending pretty quickly. But CDBG has a lot more activities, and so there's just more potential for one or two to fall behind in spend down. So this is a snapshot really of what that letter from HUD it was referring to in terms of our spend down at that snapshot in time. So we'll keep an eye on it. We're going to add a couple of lines to this to track again a little bit closer to see what's our deviation from being on schedule, or are we on schedule for spend down? Because just listing the total amount required is a little bit hard to figure out because that's the total amount that needs to be spent by May of 2026. And that doesn't, it's hard to say, well, where should we be in September then? So we're going to try to provide some guidance there in terms of saying, as of this month, we should be about at this point. But otherwise, the projects that are identified here is no on this in terms of being on schedule. Two of them are not related to spend down issues. So it was the sober living reintegration project, which we're still working to get beneficiary count on. There are some beneficiaries, but not as many as they've committed to. And the collaborative street outreach with OAR has now advanced towards a funding contract. We were waiting for their documentation, which was taking quite a while to get them under contract, which is kind of, an early step that, wow, we might have trouble spending that down if we don't get into a contract soon. But they have been incurring some expenses already. So we think that is going to work out. And Anissa, do you have anything to add to any of the grant disbursement issues?
No, I think you covered that. Everything. We've been following up with INHS and all the others that are moving slowly, so we can answer any other questions you may have.
I just have a quick question about, I feel like St. John's is regularly on this report as a no. How are they doing?
They are closer. Their issue is that they haven't reached the beneficiaries that they said, which is 14. So now they are up to 9. So hopefully by next quarter, they would be up to 14, I'm hoping. So that's why we're tracking that. The expenditure isn't the issue. We do not want to close out the project until they've met their goals.
Have they talked about is it that do they need support, let's say, from maybe REACH or some other community organization in order to
Reach their goals.
yeah.
I asked them that previously, and they said that they were working with all community partners, but I could remind them actually that, because Home ARP is underway, that might be a good connection to reaffirm. My understanding is that they needed to pause operations for a bit, or were later starting than they thought because of staffing issues. That's what they said earlier on. So they have made some progress, but actually I think that's a good suggestion to remind them that they might want to contact REACH.
All right, seeing no further questions and seeing that we're 2 minutes till the next IURA meeting. I don't have any substantive report other than that the Downtown Revitalization Initiative grant is moving forward, application that is. There is no Common Council liaison report because he is stranded in Europe right now. So staff report.
A couple of quick items, some good news. The HUD regional office just approved our action plan for 2025. So that's now ready for a contract to be received from to receive the funding. 309 College Ave, the East Hill Fire Station formally closed on the sale of that property. So that's a $5.525 million sale on that property. So that will defray the cost. That was part of our urban renewal project plan of the agency to facilitate that. Works out to about $650 a square foot, which is a pretty rich real estate value. And that's a good that met the expectations for deferring the cost of the new fire station project. What else do I have here? We have some early information about the federal budget as it relates to the CDBG and home program. You may recall that the president's budget zeroed out the CDBG and home program. The U.S. House Budget Appropriations Subcommittee on THUD, Transportation and Housing and Urban Development, has completed their markup. They are proposing that the CDBG program be level funded and that the home funding receive zero in the 2026 budget. And they are also recommending inclusion of member items, earmarks, which is debated in prior years, but there's a lot of earmarks proposed in their recommended budget for transportation and housing. That'll now go to the Senate before, the Senate will have to work with the House on these issues. And this is really a subcommittee's recommendation. So there's several votes still in place, but it's important to establish, the status of where it is now. So if it went through, we would expect level funding for CDBG and no additional funding for home. And then final thing, just want to let you know that the Community Housing Development Fund has gone through another round of funding. That's the Cornell City County contributions for expanding affordable housing supply in the county. Because of the CTAP policy, which requires developers who don't provide affordable housing on site, they have to make a contribution. There was $2.6 million of contributions contributed to the fund from developers. And the fund was able to provide $1.7 million in funding for a variety of projects in the city. They include the 209 West State Street INHS project for 59 units plus daycare center on the ground floor. That's $300,000, as well as some support for the Sears Street projects, which incurred some extra expenses that they hadn't anticipated for the Sears Street for sale projects, as well as some support for the Village of Ithaca's Village House, which is a supportive youth housing project on downtown. So some great projects included there, as well as outside of the city as well. So it does point to the value of having some extra contributions to be able to support those projects. INHS is reporting that the low-income housing tax credit market is in a challenging environment because due to the tax cut policies, tax credits are not fetching the value they did before. So a lot of projects that were penciling out previously based on what they could sell the tax credits to or attract tax credits for are not penciling out as well as they did before. So that's going to be a challenge as we go forward, I guess, looking at that. But meanwhile, it's good to see these projects get funded, and I can share this detailed list of funding if you have more interest in what was recommended for funding in that round. And I think that's all I had.
Nels, I have a question. I know I've asked this before and I forget, which is, what is the deliberative process for the CHDF funds?
The policy, the sponsors all appoint representatives, and that becomes the Program Oversight Committee, and they review the funding application. So the county puts out a notice of funding availability. When those are received, a technical committee appointed by the Program Oversight Committee gives some technical review of the application. Those recommendations are then passed up to the Program Oversight Committee. There is, for a meeting to be held, you needs to have a quorum from each of the sponsor groups. So Cornell County and the city all need to have representatives at that meeting. And then they make a recommendation back to their decision makers. So in the case of this latest round, the city is recommended to be providing $100,000 for the Sears Street modular for sale housing projects that will come forward to the Common Council for a final decision. But that is so far the recommendations of the Program Oversight have been supported by the funders. The city puts that money into the budget every year, so it's funding that's already built into the budget for the city as well as for the other partners. So it's a matter of decision how they want to allocate it out.
And then it's supplemented by these funds from developers who want to
Right.
not have
the de-
affordable housing.
Right. The developers pay into the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency, and the IDA then transfers those funds upon receipt to Tompkins County for this program.
I wanted to ask if you know why within Congress there's a lack of support for home funding, given that affordable housing is a conversation I think that's in every state, every city in the country.
Well, they did pass some legislation as part of the more recent budget bill to expand support for the low-income housing tax credit program. But as I just said, some of it's being undercut by the fact that the value of the credits is lower. So you could argue that they're supporting that program. The stated argument for not funding home is that the home ARP funds are still yet to be spent. Therefore, technically, it looks like there's funding in the home program, but the home ARP program is specifically targeted for homeless housing activities. It's not available for sale housing or security deposit assistance or those other things. So that's the argument they're making, that until that money gets spent down, home appears like it has sufficient funding, but it's not really a fair analysis in my judgment.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, one other question, if you know, because I remember reading that housing choice voucher funds were also going to be dramatically cut. Do you know if that was part of those discussions?
The markup is really taking the numbers that have been provided to that committee as a top line. So let's just say they have, $100 million, I don't know, huge number,
Yeah,
let's say 100 million.
Yeah.
They have to figure out how to allocate that out. So the prior budget bill established what is essentially probably the amount, and essentially they're level funding the voucher housing programs, but level funding doesn't allow for any increase of rents that don't stay level. Your rents don't stay level, but the
Yeah.
funding for the voucher program is staying level, it appears. So the agencies that work locally with assigning housing choice vouchers, that's the Ithaca Housing Authority and Tompkins Community Action, have basically stopped providing new vouchers, even when ones are returned, because they don't want to end up in a situation where they can't meet the rent requirement for people who are currently in the program. So right now, there are no new vouchers being granted locally, and that's probably true nationwide. Because until this budget is worked out, and so until they find out where it is.
So I thought the big beautiful bill passed. Are you saying it passed at the big level and now the committees work on the smaller?
Yeah,
bills,
the
the
big
mini-
beautiful bill, as you call it, is not the budget appropriation bill.
Okay.
It's setting the framework for it, and it's setting tax policy
Yeah.
and some of those bigger pictures, but it's not deciding the actual allocation for
Got it.
individual programs.
Okay, thank you.
All right, on that super optimistic note, our next meeting is 9 a.m. on Thursday, August the 28th. And may I have a motion to adjourn? Donna, seconded by